Our next speaker is Senator DiMario, who has recently been awarded an award for her mental health advocacy. So we're really thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here today to talk about one of my favorite things, which is how our brains work and helping people understand how our brains work. So I'm going to take off my legislator hat for a minute and I'm going to put on my mental health educator hat for a minute. I've been a mental health therapist for the last 20 plus years, and I've worked with many people who have experienced trauma. And so when we are talking about this bill, the Trauma Informed Schools Act, I think it is so important for people to understand what this problem looks like and how we are trying to solve it in our schools through this bill. So our brains are amazing things. They are built to help keep us safe. And when we experience something as a human being, whether we are a child or an adult, that causes us to perceive that our safety or our life is at risk, our brains kind of kick in, our instincts take over, and what happens is those very primitive parts of our brains, I'm going to do a little visual here, the very primitive parts of our brains that live right back here take over, and they take in all of the sensory experiences that we can perceive in that moment of threat to us. What we are seeing, what we are hearing, what we are smelling, what we are tasting, what our body is feeling. And because those senses need to take over, the thinking part of our brain, so the frontal lobe part of our brain that's responsible for thinking, for problem solving, for processing language, resources are directed away from that part of our brain, and they go right here to that primitive part. You've probably heard of the fight or flight reflex that kicks in, where we get ready to either respond to that threat or to run away. All of our blood flow, all of our resources are directed in that direction. And what happens then is a memory is formed in that moment of perceived risk, that doesn't just exist in words or in a thought or a feeling that we can explain. It becomes a bodily sensation. It becomes a memory that lives inside our physical being. And so when we talk about children who have had these experiences, and then what happens when they go to school, and there's some piece of sensory information that comes at them. There's a sound, there's a sensation, there's a feeling, there's a smell that reminds them of that moment when they felt like their life or safety was at risk. In that moment, those primitive structures in their brain are taking back over again, and that thinking part of their brain, the part that is processing language, that's thinking, that's making decisions, that goes back offline again. And in that moment, what you have is a child who is back in that feeling of lack of safety. Chairman McNamara said it so well when he talked about that idea of the basic need that all children have to be able to feel safe. And that's not just, again, a thought that is processed. That is a physical feeling they're having in their bodies. And so through the Trauma Informed Schools Act, what we want to be able to do is to give educators, these people who are with our children so many hours of the day, the tools to recognize when a child is experiencing that loss of felt safety, and the tools that are needed to help bring that thinking part of their brain back online, to be able to kind of bring them back to shore, so to speak, to that feeling of safety, so that they are able to learn and to grow and to succeed. And so this, as Chairman Cano so eloquently said, this is something that is going to help teachers, this is something that is going to help children, but essentially what it is it's about giving people who are around children the tools to help bring them back to safety so that they can do what they are there to do. And so I just want to echo all of the thanks to Representative Ringland Vessell and to Chairman Cano for being such champions of this bill, and to everybody who is here today. As again, a lifelong mental health therapist and a newer legislator, the idea that there would be so many people in this room today in the State House advocating for something that I have seen the effects of in our communities for so long is just overwhelming and wonderful, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be here. So thank you so much.